This is what we're discussing today, upcoming HMRC initiatives. Digital by default. As you can see, this is a new government mantra. It came a review in 2010, and it's a recommendation from the Public Services Department that all public services should be delivered online or digitally, and non-digital solutions should only be introduced as an exception. So it's going down that road. The government spending plans for 2015-16, they've got 200 million allocated over 3 years to digital by default. What they keep putting out to us is, ultimately, if you want to get in touch with the council or someone hasn't picked up my wheelie bin, you will have to do it digitally. That's what it's all about, digital, but it's not going to go away. Now, how are they going to implement it? Well, it's called Agile. Don't you love it to death? It's a cross-department, I've got it written down here. It's a cross-department approach called Agile. What they're doing is they're basically working at bits at a time, little bitty bits at a time, letting it out all the time, bits and pieces. The only problem, of course, you get is that there's constant changes, constantly changing it, altering it, so you never actually get a manual, so you can never see the whole picture. There's never one release, and things just disappear and things come in as they're changing it, which makes it incredibly difficult. And we actually asked Teresa Middleton of HMRC in the last issue of our magazine about it, and this was the answer we got. We are not yet, this was only 3 months or 4 months ago, we are not yet in a position to provide the answers to all the how will it work questions. So how will it work? Who the heck knows? I think that basically says it all. So we've got 2 major initiatives by this digital by default scenario. IDA, Individual Identity Assurance, and the Agent Online Self-Service, or AOSS. So let's have a little look and see what this is all about. IDA, you may have been hearing about IDA. IDA, Individual Identity Assurance. This is a Cabinet Office initiative that will enable government departments to be sure that users are who they say they are when they interact. Yeah, that's basically what it seems to be all about. Now, literally last 2-3 weeks ago, hot off the press, IDA for organisations has now been abandoned. What it was originally, this is all this agile, 1 minute I tell you something and then it changes. What was supposed to happen was your client would have to register their IDA, you, the practice, would have to register your IDA, and then the two would mix and talk to it, and that's how it was to go ahead. However, they did realise, after a lot of pressure, we put in all manner of, said, look, you're talking nonsense, this is not going to work. Lots of pressure, lots of even the tester said it's not working. So finally, they've lost for organisations, they said it's just not going to work. So that's gone. So basically, it will just carry on, as a council, we'll carry on using the government gateway credentials. Okay, so that's not going to change. But individual IDA is going to continue. That's how people will have to establish their individual IDA with third-party providers whenever they are going to be digitally talking with government departments. At the moment there's 8, as it says up there, third-party providers. 3 I can remember. We've got Experian's one, PayPal's another, and the Post Office another. There's the others I'm not sure of. Interestingly, no banks have been involved. So basically, what's going to happen, when you're getting in touch with your council, you go through your third-party provider, and they establish that you are who you say you are. Then therefore they can deal with you. That's the way that it's supposed to work. Now, as part of this digital by default, it's all, as you can see, it's aimed at the individual. So the individual and the business will be able to do far, far more than we as their agents or their accountants can do. I'm not sure of the timescale, but they say they are thinking about us. But for instance, on PAYE, as it is now, where they look at their tax dashboard or whatever they call it, the client can look at it. The client can do things. He will be able to reallocate payments if he thinks the payments are wrong. He'll be able to go online and digitally say, I haven't got a company car, or change his company car. He'll be able to ask and change his code number. We as accountants will not. We can look, but we can't do anything, which is a strange concept. We are at least badgering them to say, as a minimum, if any of our clients do go online and change something, would you at least let us know? Will we get an email? Will we get contacted to say, oh, Mr. So-and-so just gone in and said he hasn't got a company car. And the reason why he hasn't got a company car is because he doesn't really want to have one, but he's got a company car, we know it, but he just doesn't want to pay the tax. We're not certain what's going to happen on that. We've asked for that. Now, why the system has been developed with us last in line, it's a matter of conjecture. But this was a comment made to me by one of the HMRC staff, which I think that says it all. It says, no matter how easy we make tax for individuals and businesses, it seems they still want to use an accountant. Which I think says it all, and why we are lagging so far behind. They really are not mega keen. Everything they're doing, digital, everything is being pushed out towards the individual, do stuff. So we'll see. Sorry?
Can you back the system and be the client?
You can if you know their IDA credentials, if you're going to go that route. But their IDA credentials are not going to be two simple questions. I think they would say it's wrong, but I think you might find it a big problem because your IDA credentials is not 2 or 3 questions. Apparently they're going to ask you about 15.
Then you've bypassed that normal process.
Anyway, shall we move on while John's discussing this? Agent online self-service. Right. We still will have to register for online self-service. We are definitely going to register, right? And your registration will not be considered, right, until your clients have been verified. Simple as that. The process they've now outlined, the latest process they've outlined, because believe me, the Agile has come up with loads of things, but the latest one they spoke to us about the other week was they're going to send you 2 lists of your clients. One list for paper authorisations that you got registered with 64/8 on paper. The second list would be for the ones that maybe you registered online. So they're going to send you 2 lists. Now, those lists are going to be held separate from your gateway list. So it's not the same list. So you've got another list you can look at. You can go in there, go, I've never heard of this guy, and you can delete quite happily. You can also go in there, so they've got the address wrong, so you can change the address. What you cannot do, what they will not allow you to do, is to say, well, what happened to my brother? I've been his accountant for 20 years, he's disappeared, he's not on my list. If it's not on the list, you are going to have to go through a reauthorization process. And a raging guess, it'll be online. So you're going to end up having to online reauthorize clients that have vanished from your list. Be advised, they believe they've got a reasonable, in quotes, reasonable stab at your self-assessment clients and your corporation tax clients. PAYE, VAT, that's what they said. Not too sure about those. But they're going to have to do this in phases. It's not all going to be everyone going in at once. We don't know how they're going to phase it alphabetically, size, geographic, we just don't know. The one thing that's going to happen is we've asked them and said that when you send the data out, we said you've got to give us more than just a bare bones name, because we just don't want to have the W. Smith problem, do we? Is that Bill? Is that William? Is that, we don't want to spend hours on it. So we're saying you've got to give us as much information as possible, because they just thought, I'll just give you a list. Here's the client's name. I said, no, it just doesn't work like that. So time will tell on that one. Now, what they're saying is the first one up is going to be PAYE. And PAYE they're targeting to be in spring 2015. So they're saying that could well be the first one. So all your payroll clients, that's the one they're targeting. I think I might be wrong in saying, but I think that's probably got something to do with the fact of the mess that the RTI has gotten them into, and this is their one chance to try and at least cleanse the data to get the RTI right. So that's that. Moving on. Concerns with AOSS. Well, a couple of things. The much vaunted digital authorisation process, we haven't heard anything about that for a year. They're not mentioning that at all. This was the wonderful thing where I get a new client, I simply tell them this is my client. No 64.8, nothing. And they were saying, oh, that's fine, that will work well. We've heard literally, as I say, nothing about that. Now, will it happen? I don't know. I would have thought they would be ratcheting up about that because it's so important, but they seemed to have stopped to say nothing be mentioned for at least a year or more. So it could well be that that's going to be another agile failure. I don't know. I know they're desperate to get rid of 64.8s and not do things in paper, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to go on this, you know, you can digitally say this is my client and that's the end of the matter. So we've got to see what's happening on there. Regulation by the back door. Well, what they're saying is once you've cleansed your data, then you can apply. Once you've then applied and they grant it you, you've got your agent online self-service. This is what they've said. Once agents have registered for AOSS, we will be looking at introducing enhanced services for agents who meet certain, brackets, still to be defined, close brackets, agreed minimum standards. Whose minimum standards? What are these standards? Well, they're still to be agreed. We don't even know what they're talking about now. But it's virtually certain that what they will say, at the moment, AOSS is just going to produce like this dashboard where you can see your client's affairs, you can look at it, you can't do nothing. They're going to give you more and more based on still to be defined agreed standards. So will it be regulation by the back door? Quite possibly, quite possibly. Moving forward, working together. I look around the room and I know there's a few people here who are on working together initiatives up and down the country. So there's a couple around there. It's supposed to be about bringing agents and HMRC together, discuss problem areas, recommend improvements, generally work for the benefit of the taxpaying community. Local groups have been meeting 3 or 4 times a year up and down the country, all over the place. However, it could be that working together could become one of the first victims of the default, digital by default, as HMRC are saying they're looking at the costs of sending their staff around the country to go to these working together meetings. So they've sent out letters to people who are on working together asking for their thoughts and asked them to put their views. They're talking about, you can't make this stuff up, they're talking about closed LinkedIn groups, Skyping to do this working together, and of course we got the ubiquitous webinar. Just to let you know, and David was there as well, I attended the Ipswich meeting with David and a couple of others I think around here, and safe to say the offices where they meet in Ipswich has now been closed. Another casualty, it had all been closed, but that's closed, and they've got nowhere to meet now. And the HMRC's representative was asking for venues to meet, but there was no money in the budget to pay for anywhere. So I don't know what's going to happen to Ipswich. Do you know what's going to happen to Ipswich, David?
No, we don't.
No, nobody knows what's going to happen to you, but then don't worry, Dave, because you can always Skype in your advance. I think that's it. Okay, moving on. Compliant tax returns. HMRC are determined to get compliant tax returns. Compliant by whose? It's them. It's them. They want it compliant to their agreed parameters. Not ours, theirs. And what they're saying is, they've apparently, Anthony will know this far better than I, but they're telling me they've apparently got 400 trigger points in any given tax return. If any of these triggers go, the computer goes mad, red lights start flashing, and you know you're going to get investigated. What do I know? But that's what they've got, 400 trigger points. And what they're saying is they are going to give some developers are going to be given some of the 400 trigger points, which will then prompt a very strong worded message that HMRC think this is wrong, you put it right, or else I'm going to fine you. I don't know. It's going to prompt some thing to come up like with a skull and crossbones saying, oh, are you sure? Then they're going to make telephone calls around to the people who had these things. You can't make this stuff up on this. And then see if that gets a more compliant return than someone who didn't have a prompt. So I said, well, either the return is right or it's wrong. Whether it's right, I did say, or we pointed out to them and said, look, if your wretched prompt comes up, and I look at it and say, I'm 100% certain there's not a problem with this tax return in whatever way. You know, the poor guy's been in hospital for 11 months. That's possibly why there's not a lot going on here. And I actually put it in the white space. I said, will anyone actually read it?
Should we all be looking at engagement letters with regard to all of these matters that are going on?
Well, the engagement letter, as you know, can cover anything that you like, and I think you might want to be thinking about it, what you're putting in. But I don't think it's particularly good policy to be saying that given your permission we're going to go in, because it gives the indication that we can't do things. So it's an awkward one. I don't think I'd put it in.
I'm just conscious of acting without authority.
Yeah.
You know, so the thing is, I think that...
But they're the ones, we can't act. We can't do anything, remember. They can go in and change things, we can't. So we got nothing that we do will alter. We will still go our usual procedures.
What I'm thinking about is people getting into trouble.
Yes.
For doing something without having.
Yes,
authority.
you've always got that, you know, if you put out that they're doing that, then obviously you've got a situation where, you know, you might want it in the engagement letter that if they go direct and make changes, which will be available to them if they've gone down this road, then obviously it's under their own, you know, their own auspices, and that, you know, we're not going to be held responsible. Whether or not they would expect us to pick it up, this is one of the things that we said, well, we need at least to be told that someone's gone in and said their code number's wrong and changed it, even though they don't understand that they've got two jobs, that's why one of them is behind, they just don't understand it. But as I say, we still don't know if they're going to...
Are there standard templates now for engagement letters?
There are coming out, but I don't know, Anthony, if they're coming out on all these new issues, you'll know better than I. They're beginning to come out, so watch this space there. Because there's so much changing, it's definitely going to be coming out. So is it, oh, you like that, didn't you? We've been waiting to do that. Has anyone else got a question? No? Cool. Right, so thank you for listening to that.